Creme Wealth Management, we come with no pretense. Financial advising, making money make sense.
Hey, thanks for joining us today. I'm here with Jay Lamb with Elite Medicare, and we're going to be having a discussion on Medicare. Exciting stuff today. So how are you doing today, Jay?
Hey, doing great, Andrew. How about yourself?
Pretty good. Thanks for taking the time to go through this.
Oh, I'm happy to do it. It's what I do every day, is help people understand this crazy stuff, because it's really difficult for people. And some people think it's real easy, but there's some lot of little gotchas in there that we need to be aware of.
Absolutely. So that's why I look to someone like you to help educate me and my clients on these things, because it is complicated.
Yes, it is.
I've got a bunch of questions to go through. I thought we'd just jump into it today, and we can kind of try to see as much as we can get through in an hour here. So
Perfect. What you got?
So I think we want to start kind of on a high level, right? Let's talk about, what is Medicare and what are kind of the major parts of it, maybe broken up individually so that people can start to understand the, 4 different segments and how it all plays into their future benefits.
All right. Well, your question was, what is Medicare and how's it broken up? And basically, Medicare has 4 parts, as you were alluding to. And you might have heard of Part A, and that's the hospitalization. And you paid for the hospitalization part by working for a minimum of 40 quarters or 10 years. And, you have to be a person who's got residency in the United States. You have to be close to 65 to do it. You could get it earlier than 65 if you had some disabilities. Then to go along with the Part A, you have the Part B, and the Part B is the doctor's office and doctor office visits and tests. So those things that you might find like an MRI or a CT would fall under your Part B portion of it. You might have heard of the Part D, and D is for drugs. So the Part D you have to pick up from a third-party carrier. It's not something that's offered under original Medicare. And then we look at the third-party companies for all your medical benefits, and that's called a Part C, or a Medicare Advantage plan. You may have also heard of the supplement plans. Those are the parts that go along and work with original Medicare. And a supplement, you might hear of a Plan G or a Plan M. Those are kind of the most popular ones that we have each month that we use today. We sell more of those than anything else. You may have also heard of a Plan F. A Plan F is no longer available. They actually stopped selling the Plan F as of January 1st, 2020.
So we've got kind of the 4 major parts of Medicare, and then within that, you've got different letter designations for the supplements in addition to that.
Right. And I'll be honest with you, the supplement part is probably created one of the most confusing things about it, because they labeled their plans A, B, C, D, E, F, G through N, and Medicare labeled its parts A, B, C, D. So it became very confusing back in the 60s when they created this. One gentleman told me, he says, Jay, if they'd have just called supplements Plan 1, 2, 3 and Medicare A, B, C, D, there wouldn't be any confusion. But we kind of have to create that distinction in our mind and thinking those supplements are not a Medicare Advantage plan. They just work with original Medicare.
Gotcha. So when we think about Medicare Part A, we're talking about what everyone's paid in for as long as they qualify with those, credits that you talked about.
Exactly.
Are there any limitations that people should know about that say, well, I'm covered with Medicare Part A? What are those limitations, if any?
Sure. There are definitely some limitations. I teach in my classes that just straight original Medicare, A and B, I consider it financial devastation, because I don't think we can afford it if we have something really bad happen. So if we were on just original Medicare and we went into the hospital, there's a $1,408 deductible associated with going to the hospital. And oh my goodness, if you stayed in the hospital for more than 60 days, you start paying $352 a day after that. And should you ever have a stay of over 90 days, you're going to pay $704 a day. That is not in my budget. That does not fit. So I need something that's going to give me a safety net to protect me against those costs.
So there's some deductibles involved with Medicare Part A.
Right. And then I didn't talk about B yet, because B is the 80/20 portion of this plan. So if your cardiologist happened to order you a $100,000 test, and that's not an unreasonable number, you owe $20,000 or 20% of the cost of that. So on top of that test, those dollars I talked about for a hospital stay under Part A, you still owe 20% of whatever the doctor orders, and you still have to purchase a drug plan in addition to that. So A and B is not where we want to be. I just find it extremely expensive for people to just be on A and B.
So when we talk about being on Plan B, do you mean having a supplement?
No. On Plan B, I want you to think of the supplement as working along with the A and the B. So the supplement basically is going to pay ahead for your services. So you're going to have gone ahead and prepaid for services with a supplement. So it works with A and B, and it covers all of your costs that Medicare covers. Now remember, A and B doesn't cover a lot of things. It doesn't cover dental, it doesn't cover vision, and it doesn't cover hearing. It doesn't cover any transportation. So there's a lot of things that you don't get with just original Medicare. The supplement will bring a few of those things, like a gym membership, whereas the Advantage plans will bring far more benefits. I call them gold nuggets. Things like the dental, the vision, and the hearing will come along with with the Advantage plans that don't come along with the original Medicare or a supplement plan. I want you to think of for a second, kind of like, I'm going to pay for my Part B premium, and then I'm going to pay about another $125 a month for prepaying for my medical services. So I won't pay anything if I go to the hospital, like we talked about on Part A from original Medicare. I won't pay for anything on Part B, like those tests that cardiologist said, and I would owe $20,000 or 20% in my example. So we've got to watch out for all of those things and have a safety net to go along with original Medicare.
So would those things fall under Part C then?
Well, they actually fall into two areas. Part C is what I call a pay-as-you-go type plan. You have to have A and B to be able to get a C. So A and B is going to kind of sit on the sidelines for you, and the third-party carrier, which are the C plans, will pick up and take care of your medical benefits. When we're talking, I want to jump back over to the supplement again, because I want to refresh everybody that is a pay-ahead type plan. I've prepaid for my services. So I pay that $125 a month in addition to my Part B premium at age 65. Whereas on the Advantage plans, I may have a $0 monthly premium. I may have a $42 monthly premium. I can get higher premiums, but I don't generally sell those. But I do with the Part C's is pay as I go. And then I have a stopping point with each of those, where not like a deductible, but like a maximum out of pocket. So the most I could spend for my medical services before the plan pays 100% of coverage.
In doing a supplement versus a replacement, those kind of conversations when I'm having with clients, do you have any insight as to pros and cons on both? It sounds like the Medicare Advantage and the replacement side of things, you might get other benefits, right? Dental, vision, some things like that. But
Well,
is there limitations on top of it as well?
There are, and I'm going to run through a couple of the scenarios where I definitely put people on the supplement plans. There's one other scenario that goes where people just feel more comfortable having two bills. You know, they want to know everything is taken care of. But the other ones that I run into mostly, the Medicare supplements do not have a doctor network. The Advantage plans all will have a doctor network. The supplement does not cover things. So it doesn't cover any cosmetic surgery that you have. And the Advantage plans won't cover that cosmetic surgery, but they will bring additional benefits that the supplement doesn't cover. So they may have transportation. They may have a card where you can go to the pharmacy and buy things that you find around the pharmacy, like vitamins and sinus medicines and toothpaste and toothbrushes and Depends or a cane or just anything that you might need. those come along with those benefits. But the supplement plan, if you took a plan G, the only extra cost you would have would be like $198 deductible. Then everything else is covered. The Advantage plans, as I was saying, is you're going to pay as you use services. So if I go in and I need a cataract surgery, I'll pay a copay for my cataract surgery. And this is much more reasonable than what I find in the employer world or the Affordable Care Act. We're talking in the neighborhood of $250 to $325 for surgery. So a gallbladder surgery would fall in that price range. Cataract surgery would fall in that price range. But I want to go back to some of the other reasons that you might have the supplement. I talked about the doctor network. But in addition to the doctor network, you might be a person who travels all the time. So I've got a gentleman all over the country. He still works, and he's all in California, and he's in Florida, and he's over in Italy, and he just travels all around. And he needed coverage wherever he was. Well, at that point in time, there wasn't an Advantage plan that had nationwide doctor coverage. So he needed that larger network of doctors so he could have coverage wherever he was. The Advantage plans are local networks of doctors. So in other words, you typically don't get to have a nationwide network. There are some new ones that have come out that are enabling that. But as a norm, you have a geographic area that you're staying within. So if you're in North Texas, we're looking at plans that are available and doctors that are available in North Texas. And that makes a difference to some people who like to travel a lot. So if you're a snowbird and you're coming from the north or coming down to the south for the winter time, you may have to have something that's more like a supplement than it is to help make sure you have the coverage that you need.
Yeah, that's great. So I think I have more. What are they called? Heat birds when they go into the north to get out of the heat in the summer.
Right. Exactly.
That's where I find myself.
Uh-huh. Well,
so when we look at all these different supplement options, right? You said there's supplements A through N, right?
Uh-huh.
When you
That's
go
correct.
through that, how do you decide kind of the best fit for clients given all those different options? Is there a real easy way to say how they're kind of differentiated amongst the many choices?
Sure. Remember with a supplement, and this is a good thing about supplements. In Texas, every supplement is the same. So every plan G or every plan E is identical. The only thing we're looking for different between them is the carrier and the price. So we may have a different price being in a different zip code, but we know that plan G is identical. And used to be, we had a whole variety of letters that we used for them. And to be honest with you, we really only look at two of them today. And I'm talking about for people over 65. There's some other ones for people under 65. But for people over 65, we look at the plan G, which replaced the plan F. And the only difference between a G and an F was simply the $198 deductible. So it didn't make any sense for people paying extra so that they could write a check for you for $198. The plan N is basically you pay a copay when you go to your doctor, or you pay a copay when you go to the hospital, but you don't pay anything after you make those payments. So those are really the only two that we really look at. Back up a second. The G and the N also have a variation to them. They have a high deductible version of them. So you may pay $2,500 up front before your plan G kicks in. So you'll get it at a lower cost, but you've got to pay that first $2,500 up front. And that number changes each year. And the plan N would be the same thing.
So not only do we have plans A through N, but we have N1 and N2 and variations.
Right.
Wow.
Right. And they usually will list them as HD, high deductible G, or high deductible N.
Wow. Because it's not confusing enough, right?
Right. Exactly. Why would we want to do anything easy and make it simple to understand?
Yeah. So I get a good amount of questions about the donut hole of Part D.
Sure.
And does it still exist today and things like that? Can you talk a little bit about how did the Part D come about? What was the donut hole, and what are your thoughts on today's ramifications.
Okay. In all of my meetings with my carriers, they tell me the donut hole is gone. It doesn't exist anymore. And I personally feel like the donut hole does still exist because there is a category called the coverage gap where we pay far more. But I want to back up for a second and just talk about a few things about that first. So Medicare Part D has penalties if you don't have a prescription drug plan. So I first want to make sure everybody understands that if you go 63 days or more without a prescription drug plan, you're going to get a penalty from Medicare when you start a plan back up. Now, maybe you had fraud on your checking account. You closed your checking account down and it caused your Part D premium to bounce. And that happened 2 months in a row because you're trying to put your life back together. Well, you may have a penalty of $1.75 for the rest of your life just for missing those 2 months. And it was the third month before we could get you back on a plan. So you may have a penalty forever. So Medicare penalties are not like a speeding ticket. These go with you forever. If you waited till you're 65, from 65 to 70 and you were working, and you might have a penalty of $35 a month if you didn't have a Part D premium or Part D plan. So we always want to keep that Part D plan in. We want to make sure we have a Part D plan at all times. Whenever we look at the different stages of the prescription drug plan, we have a deductible. Medicare says the deductible can be up to $435 for 2020. It's going up a little bit for next year. We don't really want to pay that much if we don't have to. That's the maximum it can be. All of the carriers are going to have something less than that as a general rule. Maybe, maybe not. Some of them don't. But $435 is our deductible, and maybe they exempt a tier 1 or tier 2 drug from that deductible, so they make it a little more advantageous for those people who have the lower cost drugs. A tier 1 drug, for example, is a preferred generic, and a tier 2 is a regular generic. A tier 3 would be a preferred brand, and a tier 4 would be a specialty brand, and a tier 5 is a specialty drug. That's the normal way that you will see this information conveyed. It'll have a price tag of a tier 1 and it'll say 0, and you'll see a price of tier 2 and it'll say $14, and a tier 3 might be $47. Tier 4 may be $100. They're talking about the initial coverage phase when we're numbers. When you and the insurance company together have spent $4,020, you pay about 25% of that. So you spend about $1,005 yourself out of pocket. Once that happens, you move into the donut hole or the coverage gap, that one that doesn't exist anymore. And during this time frame, you're going to pay 25% of the cost. So in the initial stage, we paid 25%, but the insurance company and the drug manufacturers covered 75% of that. Now, in the next stage, you're going to pay 25% of the retail price. So if that medication was $1,000, you're going to pay $250 a month for that because you're in the donut hole. And it takes an additional $2,330 in 2020 out of your pocket to get you out of the donut hole. When we do pay that, for a total amount spent is $6,350, you move into the catastrophic phase. And during the catastrophic phase, you're going to pay 5% of the cost of the medication normally. You might pay $3.60 or $9, $8.95, $8.95, excuse me, for that medication until the end of the year. And then at the end of the year, we start back over with that initial stage again until you've met the thresholds for the following year. But the donut hole still exists in my mind. They tell us it doesn't, but I really feel like anytime I'm paying 25% of a retail price and not getting any assistance from the manufacturer or the drug company or the carrier, then I'm really still paying extremely high cost. One thing I will tell everybody, next year we're seeing some really great things happen on those who are on insulin. I'm seeing insulin being brought down to about $35 a month for most people, and that's through the donut hole. So there's been a few really good things that have happened for the prescription drugs in the last couple of years. It's going to make 2021 much better for those people who do take insulins.
Awesome. That was great. When we talk about Medicare, people think of Medicare being 65.
Absolutely.
Can you take Medicare earlier than 65? And can you take it later than 65?
And the answer to both of those first is yes. To be able to get Medicare's benefits before age 65, we have to be disabled, and we have to be disabled for 24 months. So they won't let us have Medicare until the 25th month of disability. Then you could receive Medicare's benefits at that point. If you turn 65, you're automatically eligible for your Medicare. You can then sign up for the Medicare medical side of it. You don't have to take your Social Security dollars, but you can go ahead and sign up, or you can take the Social Security dollars as well as the medical benefits. One thing I tell everybody is when you turn 65, you should sign up for your Part A. Remember, a lot of this stuff was entered in by hand years ago. It's not all been by computers as long as I've been working, so I know people who are already 65 or have a situation where they could be in where some information is missing. So I tell everybody to sign up for your Part A at 65, even if you're going to continue working with employer coverage. The question for most of us is the Part B. When is it time to sign up for Part B? And you really need to make an informed choice with this. You have to ask yourself some questions. Do I have an employer coverage? Does that coverage have a big deductible? What's the monthly cost of it? Is somebody else covered on my plan? I need to evaluate all of those things because oftentimes I have a spouse who the younger beneficiary has the older beneficiary on their plan. Well, they can now shift over to the Medicare portion of it and not be paying those high monthly premiums. A lot of times I get told by people that they have a $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 or $8,000 deductible. We don't really talk about deductibles in the Medicare world. I mean, we talk about a few. I talked about a $198 one earlier, and I talked about a prescription drug deductible. We're really talking about when we're looking at the difference between, is it time to jump off of our employer coverage and jump over into the Medicare world, is our deductibles. If we have a deductible in the $3,000 range or $5,000 or $8,000 like mine on the Affordable Care Act, it doesn't make sense for us to stay on that employer coverage or that Affordable Care Act. We need to look at something a lot less expensive. So with the deductible, we also have a premium associated with that. Well, if our monthly premium is $100 and our deductible is $1,000, I'm going to keep the employer coverage. But maybe the deductible is $5,000 and I don't have anything to worry about because I know I'm going to jump over to Medicare because I don't want to pay a $5,000 deductible. Medicare doesn't have the most part. I have a few plans I can get a deductible on. Now, let me back up for a second because I did talk about a $198 deductible a minute ago, and I did talk about some prescription deductibles. But for right now, I'm going to leave the prescription deductible on the side. So we're just talking about a medical deductible. $198 is nothing compared to an $8,000 or a $5,000 or $3,000 deductible that we have quite often. So if my cost of my insurance is $300 a month for my monthly premium, I've got a $2,000 or $3,000 deductible associated with it, it doesn't make sense for me to keep the employer coverage. It makes much more sense for me to jump over and pay the $144 a month for the Part B premium, and then pick up the Advantage plan at $0 a month. They go up to $40, they go on up from higher than that, but that's the general range, $0 to $40 a month. That's when I know it's time to be able to make a shift over. Also, I have to keep in mind my spouse or other dependents. If they're on the plan, maybe I can't jump over to Medicare because they're on my plan. Or it's vice versa. I'm on my spouse's plan. She's younger than I am. And because she's younger, I'm a burden, not a burden, but I'm more cost. I have a much higher costs associated with my benefits. So it makes sense for me to jump over to it as I age in.
Yeah. So if you're working and you have elected to take Medicare Part A alone, what does that process look like to opt in for Medicare but not take Social Security at the same time as a lot of people want to continue to work, not take Social Security and wait until their full retirement benefit at 67 or even waiting till 70 for Social Security?
Right. Well, if you keep it, first of all, it's real easy. The Part A, you go online to Medicare.gov and you just click on enroll. And don't get caught up in all what I call the pretty shiny objects, because everything on Medicare's website looks important. But just stick with the enroll. It'll take you 15 minutes to sign up for Part A. And that just ensures all of your paperwork is in a line, and that they're not missing anything. Because it's a whole lot easier to go get some information from an employer while you're still there, as opposed to after you've left employment. So I had one lady I worked with. The company she worked for was bought out 3 times by the time she was 65 to 70 when she decided to retire. Well, nobody knew the first company if she had coverage. They all knew they had coverage, but nobody had any records. Then the second company came along, and then this great big company, turns out they moved their HR department to South America. And you know what? In South America, they knew nothing about Medicare or what the term even meant. So she was totally lost by it being in that situation. So it was a great thing for her to go in early and get all of those details wrapped up. Once we get Part A taken care of and we're further down the road and we're ready to start Part B, then we go in and we can just sign up either by paper or online. Just go online, and it takes about 15 more minutes, maybe 20 minutes, to be able to fill out the Part B application, because you've already done all the legwork. You basically give them all your name, address, and all of that information. So the B is very easy. But in addition to the Part B application, we have to have a third application. We have the A application, then we have an employer verification form that we need to fill out. In years gone by, we had to have someone in the HR department sign this form. COVID has changed that for us, where you can sign that form and they'll deal with working out the benefits later as far as whether you had coverage previously. So we don't have to try and figure out how to get into the office that's now closed because of COVID. So we can just fill out that application and submit it to them. Right now, if you wanted an appointment in McKinney, they don't offer appointments because of COVID. Before COVID, McKinney was a 6-week wait for an appointment. Medicare in downtown Dallas was a 4-week wait for an appointment. You can go and sit down in their office and wait an hour and a half to 2 hours and get to see somebody. I actually recommend going that route to do it, because waiting 6 weeks may put you out of the window that you need to be in to start your coverage. So if you go in and spend that time, it's not something you can do on the phone, but you can just go in and drop off your paperwork for them. When I talk about drop off paperwork, also, anytime you're sending something to Social Security or anybody else, you keep the original. Make a photocopy of it and give them the photo, so you have records of what it said and what was sent in to them. But it's real important that you do make sure that you get that done in a timely manner, and meet those windows, the criteria to sign up properly.
So the enroll portion will have to be printed and then brought into the Medicare office, or is that in lieu of doing it online, you could also go into the office?
The only time you have to get to the office is to provide that employer verification form. That's really the key there, is that employer verification, because the A and the B, you can sign up online and it's no problem. And in half an hour, you're done. But if you have worked past that age 65, then it becomes more important to give that employer verification form to them. And the only way they're accepting it is basically to deliver it or to mail it to them. I don't always trust the post office, so that's why I say spend the 2 hours, sit down in it. It'll be a waste of your time or feel like a waste of time, but it's a very valuable thing to have done to make sure you get it done correctly.
Is there anything that people have to do prior to age 65 to prepare for taking it?
Not really. You don't, you want to learn a little bit about it. People typically come to me about 6 months before they turn 65. And that's when I first sit down with folks, because they're getting concerned. They're starting to receive some mail, and they're starting to receive, have questions about what really is this? I better look into it. So at that point, about 6 months before is when we start our window to start looking at it. At 3 months before your birth month, that's when we really start taking action. So that third month before, so if our birthday was in April, January would be 90 days out before my birth month, because we don't go with your birthday, we go with your birth month. So that's when I say start the Part A application. If you're going to start take the B, the health benefits, both A and B, you want to fill out both of those in that 3 months prior to. My goal for everybody is a little different than Medicare's. My goal is for you to have your card in hand on day one. So the first day you're eligible for your services, I want you to have your card, not your Medicare card. You've already received that a month ago. But the first day that you are eligible, should you get in an accident and you've got to go to the emergency room, I want you to have that card. I don't want you to have that story of, yeah, I've got insurance, but I don't have my card. I don't know my member ID number, because that's a real problem for people to get into that situation. So I like to start a little further out than most people tell you to start, but it just makes sure it does it in a very smooth transition for you. I do want to talk about the Part B premium for just a second. And the Part B premium this year for 2020 is $144.60. And we see increases annually for those Part B premiums. I see an increase about $9 a month year over year. So for the last 5 years, we've seen about $9 per month increase, not monthly increase, but a $9 increase. So it might go up from $144 up $9. Hopefully next year it's going to be up about $5. So we should be right around $150 for 2021. That's the rumor right now. I haven't seen anything in writing that states that, but that's kind of what we're looking at today. And make sure that 144 I mentioned is for those who do not have IRMA, and IRMA is an income-related monthly adjustment amount. And so seniors who have an income above $87,000 as a single person, or $172,000 as a married filing jointly, would be that $144.60. So anybody who has incomes above that is going to have to pay a little bit more. They're going to get a penalty associated with it. So let me
go ahead. Hey, can you, I guess, jump into what determines the cost based on your income using IRMA? Can you kind of go through it a little bit more so people can understand that?
Sure. Well, first I should let you know, Medicare calls people who are Medicare recipients beneficiaries. So when you see the word beneficiary, they're talking about you. And you have to pay a premium for your Part B services. Remember, I said Part A was paid for by working those 10 years or 40 quarters. Part B is what we're talking about here in this particular case. Also, you have a penalty for Part D for that income, that excessive income. So these premiums are paid by Medicare, and Medicare covers about 75% of the cost of the services, and you pay about 25%. But if we have a higher income level, they have 5 additional levels that you could fall into where you're going to have to pay a higher monthly premium for your Medicare services. So IRMA is IRMAA, and it's an income-related monthly adjustment amount. And if you get the letter from Medicare that says the initial IRMA determination notice, you might want to run. No, not really. But it's going to tell you that they are looking back 2 years at your income. So 2 years ago, you have to ask yourself, did I have some inheritance? Did we sell some family land? Did I have was I in a higher income bracket? And what they're looking at is they're looking at your IRS form. So they're looking at your tax return for that. So you need to be able to be aware, did I have on line 8B, my modified adjusted gross income, was that above the threshold? Did I have any tax exemption interest income associated with it? Line 2A from your 1044. So I've got to look at those 2 lines and see what those are and determine what threshold they are either above or below. So to give you an example of that, like I said, we have the 144.60 for those who income was 87,000 or less, or as a family, a joint return, 174,000. I believe I said 172. I'll correct that, 174. But let's just say we have a higher income ourselves. Our personal income was 163,000, and our family income was 326,000. We would now be paying $607 a month for our Part B premium, and that's not spouse and husband. That's individual costs. So you would each be paying that. Now, added on to that, maybe we have a supplement plan in addition to that of $150 a month, and that $150 includes our supplement and includes our Part D, our prescription drug plan. Or if we chose to go the Advantage route, maybe zero and it has a prescription drug plan, up to $42 a month is kind of a normal number that I work between 0 and 42. So we can see some real excessive amounts for the Part B penalty that we have to be aware of. So we need to check and make sure 2 years ago what our income was. Now, if we go another year and we're now in 2021, they're no longer looking 2 years back at 2018, they're looking at 2019. So what was our income on our tax return? So that number can go back down also. So we have to look and see what is appropriate for us, and we will probably need to take action to make sure Medicare lowers that amount, because they might not do it automatically. So we need to make a phone call and get in touch with them, find out what they're looking at and see what their numbers are and compare to what our numbers are as we roll over into a new year. I want to tell you the worst case scenario here. If we made 500,000 or more as an individual, or 750 with a joint return, we would be paying $838.60 a month in 2020. So we want to make sure we're in a good spot with that, and we prepare for those numbers. I mentioned that the Part B premium is all I've really talked about for IRMA so far, but there is a Part D IRMA premium also. Not nearly as bad as the Part B, but the Part D typically is going to range somewhere from $12, $50, $76 is the most expensive Part D premium that we have. So if we had that 87,000 individual or 174 as a family, we don't pay any additional Part D premium. But if we had 136,000 as an individual and up to 272,000, or excuse me, 163,000 for a single person and 326 as a joint return for our family, we have a $50 a month penalty in our Part D. And that's not one person, that's each person, the husband and the spouse in this situation. So we have to be aware of both of those as we're going into this, because this can be the one negative thing that might keep us working if we found out that our premiums were going to be a lot higher, or excuse me, our Part B premium was going to be a lot higher than we first anticipated, or what we saw written down in all the publications. So we definitely need to be aware of that.
So this is all around Part B premiums and some Part D premiums there. I know that you had talked before about the Part D penalty.
Right.
That could be also assessed for a lack of coverage.
Right. While you're at that, let me throw one thing in there, because we can get a Part B penalty also. Let's just say we were in a situation where we turned 65 and we stopped working and we started working part-time somewhere. And we thought, well, I'm still working, so I don't have health coverage, but I'm still working. Well, if you don't sign up for Part B at the appropriate 10% per year penalty. I worked with one lady, she'll never be able to afford Medicare because she worked at one of those box stores, and she had 5 years, 65 to 70, and she said, well, I'm still working. I don't need anything. I don't have any health issues, but I'm still working. Her penalty is double her Part B premium. She will never be able to afford that. She is actually on Facebook every day pleading her plight as to why she is being excluded from this, and I use excluded. She's actually just being pushed out of it because she'll never have the money to be able to pay that monthly premium that's associated with it. So there needs to be some things looked at in certain situations, but right now, Medicare is not a speeding ticket. You pay it every month for the rest of your life should you fall into any of those penalties. I've also seen the supplement listed as a penalty. I don't consider a price increase, an annual or twice a year increase in our premiums as a penalty. I've seen it written as a penalty, so you could see that also. So
Part B, you could potentially get a 10% penalty per year.
Per year by not signing up for it.
By not signing on. And then is Part D the same, a 10% penalty per year?
Well, Part D has a different set of rules. Think of the national average for a prescription drug plan, and they base it off of that. I'm not going to go into all the details of how they calculate that, because whatever I say will end up being wrong. But just think that the average across the country of a Part D plan, they're going to divide that up, and then you're going to assess that each month. So a 3-month penalty last year was $1.66. I mentioned $1.75, but the actual penalty in this situation for not having coverage for 3 months was $1.66. Nobody says $1.66 is bad, but when you've got to pay it for the rest of your life, I consider it just somebody jabbing you in the ribs every year going, you're never going to forget this. We're never going to let you forget this. So it's more of just, to prod you so you'll never forget.
So I guess how often do people change their plans? Are they make a decision at 65 and say, I like this. This is what my life looks like. Are they stuck in it forever? Can they change it? What does that look like?
That's a great question because it's kind of different for different groups of people. So your first year and the first 9 months of the year, so if you were born January through September and you're aging in this year at 65, we have an open enrollment period each year. And that open enrollment period starts October 15th and runs through December 7th each year. That's when we make our plan selection for the upcoming year. So if you were in the first 9 months, you would be looking at your open enrollment for what's coming up next year. So the plans are released the 1st of October. We can't talk about them to the public until the 1st of October, but then we can discuss all of the changes that are going on. That's when we need to take action. I typically send an email out to my clients and say, hey, this is what the plan's going to look like next year. Take 5 minutes and look at it and just peruse through it, and you can do it in 5 minutes, no problem. And you'll go, oh, look, the primary care is still 0. Oh, a specialist went from 35 to 30. Great. Oh, look, a hospital stay went down a little bit. Oh, ambulance ride. Oh, that's about the same. And that's how fast you're going to go through it the next time. For everybody else, they're going to, well, let me stop a second. Those people who were born in October, November, and December and are aging in, those people are really looking at the 2021 plans. Because the 2020 plan, you're only going to have it for 3 months at most. But the 21 plan, you're going to have all year. So you really want to be addressing the 2021 plan those last 3 months of the year. Once everybody's plan starts January 1st, we have what I call a do-over, or use a golf term, a mulligan for those people who are on Advantage plans. The Advantage plans have the ability to change to a different Advantage plan January, February, and March. This is one of the greatest changes Medicare has done. They did this 2 years ago. It has saved countless people problems. How would you like to be in a plan where you and your agent sat down on the sofa, you looked up your doctors, and the doctor says, yes, I take that plan. And then January 2nd comes around, you call to make an appointment, the doctor goes, oh, no, I don't take that plan anymore. Well, this happened to me, and I called Medicare sitting on the lady's sofa, and we petitioned them to allow us to change. And Medicare said, yeah, that sounds like a problem. And I go, no, ma'am, we did our due diligence. We based our decision off of the information the carrier provided to us, which is what caused us to make this decision. And she goes, yeah, that sounds like a problem. I will never hear that story again. If that happens again, or any other situation that we're not happy about, it doesn't have to be that scenario. We can now make a change January or February or March for the first of the following month. March 31st is the last day to make a change. We're stuck with the plan from April 1st all the way until December 31st of the next year, or of that year, until the new plans come out. So we're on a cycle every year, very similar to what you would do as an employer, or employer coverage, where you go in once a year and you look at your health benefits and you say, do I want A, B, or C? And then you check the box that says what you're looking at. We do the same type of thing each year in the Medicare world to make sure we're in the best place. One caveat to that, if we're on a supplement plan and we have a prescription drug plan, that January, February, March change is not available to us. It's only on the Advantage plans that they allow us to make that change. Prescription drug plan, we want to make sure we have a plan that's working well for us for the whole year before we get into it and find out that this was not the plan for us. So we definitely want to do our due diligence on those, because we don't have that exception.
Yeah, no, that's really good to know. So those were most of the questions I wanted to cover today, but any other thoughts or things that would help people kind of evaluate their situation and make a good decision as to whether they should be prepping in a certain way, where can they get more information, who needs to know what right now, I guess, from your perspective?
Sure. Well, there are some things that I always have people ask, and those are, how's my health? What kind of plan am I looking for? You know, if I had some chronic illnesses in my lifetime, where's going to be the best fit for me to be in? And we want to start looking at that. What's your comfort level paying copays versus having all your bills paid with just one payment each month? Some people have a real aversion to having bills from the doctor. Maybe you have a prescription drug bill and you have the Plan G, the supplement Plan G premium, and that's all the bills you need on that you work with. Or maybe going in and paying a copay to see a specialist doesn't bother you. Maybe getting a referral on an HMO plan doesn't bother you. Maybe somebody else it does bother a whole lot. They want to be able to say, no, I want to choose my own doctor and I don't want to have to ask permission, so to speak. A PPO plan may be better. But one thing I need to tell you about HMO and PPO plans, I've heard too many agents and too many representatives say, if you have a PPO plan, you can go to any doctor that has Medicare. And that is not the case. I want you to think of HMO and PPO as two networks. You have one network on the HMO plan, and you have a second network with the PPO. That's not every doctor that takes Medicare. The supplement is the only way to get every doctor who takes Medicare into our network. So we have to use that as a determining factor for us. One of the other things that I find happens, I've been on this plan my whole 20 years of working for a company. We've had company XYZ, and my doctors are all in that company. Well, guess what? That company may be one of those companies that works very closely with employer plans, group plans. So maybe my doctors don't transition into the Medicare world. So I've got to look for either a plan that my doctors do take. So maybe those doctors do accept another plan, but they don't take my company's plan. Or maybe I need to look for a new group of doctors. So whichever the situation, be able to be prepared to know to look for those things. So that becomes a huge issue for somebody. That might be the determining factor between an Advantage plan and a supplement. One lady that I worked with, she had 5 doctors. I call them must-have doctors. And she goes, Jay, I sure like the Advantage plan pricing, and I sure do, feel like that would be a better deal for me. But if we can't get all 5 of my doctors into one plan, it does me no good. So that was a driving reason to go over to a supplement plan. Another gentleman I sat down with, he goes, Jay, I thought this was going to be a 5-minute conversation. I thought I was going to say, sign me up for that supplement plan. And he says, now that you've explained the Advantage plan, I haven't been to the doctor in 10 years. He goes, I don't take any medication. Why do I want to pay a monthly premium when I could have this at no cost to me? It makes much more sense for me to go the Advantage route. Another person may say exactly the opposite. I just need the comfort of knowing I'm not going to have to pay anything else. But one real big downside in the supplement plan, if you chose an Advantage plan when you first aged in and you got past the first year, the supplement plans look at your medical history after the first year. They review you. They look at your medications. They look at the procedures that you've had done. They then rate you like a life insurance policy based on that information. The Advantage plans never have any requirements. So in other words, there's no disqualifying questions anymore. You may have heard of ESRD. That's been a disqualifying question for a long time on the Advantage plans. That question goes away next year, so we don't have to worry about that one anymore. But the supplement plan is going to penalize you for any conditions that you had after the first year. So in other words, you have guaranteed issue when you first age in. You do not have guaranteed issue after the first year. That may be a determining factor for you. So there's, go ahead.
Get disqualified from their supplement where they are not allowed to be on it, or they raise the premiums?
No, they'll just raise the premiums I've seen premiums as high as $550 a month. They start out at $125 and they ratchet it up to $550 a month. In that particular situation, the supplement plan and the prescription drug plan that this particular individual was on, we changed her over to an Advantage plan. She had to change her eye doctor, which she didn't like anyway because he gave her shots in the eye. So she was more than happy to find another one, but he just told her the same thing. But the point being, she saved $6,000 that first year by getting an Advantage plan that had less expensive medications. The monthly premium was far less. It was $0 on the plan we put her on. And so she just had her Part B premium as the only expense she had. And then she had expenses as she needed to go to their doctors. But it just depends on what's right for you. But I want to make sure everybody is aware, Going from a supplement to an Advantage plan later on as the costs ratchet up is a good deal. Going from an Advantage to a supplement later on, because it looks like a good deal, is likely going to be very expensive for you. They also, on a supplement plan, the first year you age in, I'll just tell you a story about a gentleman I worked with. He aged in the first year, and he called me up during the open enrollment and said, "Hey, Jay, my wife aged in, and she got this supplement plan, and I kind of like it." And I said, "Oh, yeah, they're really good plans." And he goes, "Well, let's fill out an application and get me on one of those." And I said, "Okay." We filled out the application, and it came back, and he rated it $150 a month was the book rating for him. He came back at $360 a month. And I said, "What did I miss? What question did I not ask?" And he goes, "Well, you know that question you asked, have I had every medical procedure that the doctor wanted me to have in the last 2 years?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I had them all done this year. I had $440,000 worth of procedures." And I said, "Oh, well, they think there's more to come." He goes, "Oh, no, I had the surgery. I'm all taken care of. There's no problems." And I said, "But they don't understand that yet." So he said, "I'm going to stick with the Advantage plan this year." A year later, we applied again, and his premium, because there were no other medications, because there were no other surgeries, went back down to $160, $10 over the book rate. So he accepted the terms of the plan at that point because it was only $10 more than we expected. But the first year, boy, were we in for a shock. So there's several things that you need to look at going between the two and back and forth. So those are definitely conversations that should be had.
Awesome. So are you typically reaching out to your clients every, September or so and just saying, "Hey, keep an eye out. Next month, we've got the new updates," and,
Right. Well, I may not do one in September, but I always do one in the 1st of October. In the 1st of October, I'm sending out that a summary of benefits. I used to mail this to everybody, and then they started making them 14 pages long, and the postage went to be so expensive that it was much more efficient to send them by email. So today I send them by email unless somebody requests one specifically. But I send it out. You do a 5-minute review. I actually found out people spend more time looking for a hotel room for a one-night stay than they spend reviewing their medical benefits. I tried to make it so that their medical benefit review took less time than that hotel review took them. So I found it's been very beneficial to people doing it that way.
Yeah, maybe you can save them enough money to pay for the hotel.
Hey, I know I can, especially some, in certain situations, it has been thousands of dollars that they were able to save.
Yeah.
I'll tell you another quick story before we wrap up here on the prescription drugs. An individual had a medication that they were on, and they had been on the same medication for many years. And they aged into Medicare, and they said, "Jay, we've been really negligent in this, and it's the 28th of December. We need this to start January 1st. And I said, "Okay, but I want to review your doctors, and I want to review your medications." And she told me, "Oh, Jay, we've only got a few days." And I told her, "I really want to insist." And she goes, "Well, okay, we'll get them to you." So she got it to me. One of her medications on Medicare was $118,000 a year. My jaw, I had to run the numbers 3 times before I believed it, because I thought I put something wrong in.
Wow.
The information was incorrect. I selected the wrong box. I found another company who had that medication, or all of her medications, for $7,000 a year. We obviously chose the $7,000, but do you see the cliff she would have walked off by keeping the coverage that she had when they were in their working world and bringing that into the Medicare world? It was a huge it could have been a huge devastation to their family and their finances if that would have been the case. So we always want to make sure that we're reviewing not only doctors, but medications and your current situation.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, I really appreciate your time and going through all this. I know a lot of people will greatly value this information. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to share.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll have both of our contact information at the end. If anyone has any follow-up questions or anything, feel free to reach out to Jay directly.
Perfect.
All right. Thanks, Jay. Talk to you later.
Thank you.